You're walking through the forest when something that shouldn't be there catches your attention. Between ancient trees and forgotten trails, a staircase appears. It leads nowhere. It isn't connected to any house. It simply exists. Stories like this began to surface in a strange way, scattered across anonymous forums and accounts from professionals who swore they had never spoken about it publicly. Park rangers, search and rescue teams, people trained not to be easily shaken. They all described the same thing: isolated staircases deep in the woods, perfectly intact, as if someone had placed them there on purpose, and then vanished. Some were simple, made of old, creaking wood. Others looked far too modern for their surroundings. Built of concrete or marble, clean, untouched by time. The most disturbing part wasn't just their presence, but the silence around them. Animals avoided the area. The wind seemed to change direction, and there was always the same feeling, that something was watching, waiting for a decision. Among these professionals, the rule was clear: never approach, never touch, and under no circumstances climb the steps. According to the reports, those who ignored the warnings began behaving strangely after coming into contact with them. Some became disoriented. Others reported memory gaps. There were cases where search dogs trained to locate survivors simply refused to move forward, as if instinct and fear outweighed any command. What's most unsettling is that there is no map of these staircases. They don't appear in the same place twice. They may show up during a search and vanish days later, as if they were never there at all. No official records, no accepted logical explanation, only testimonies piling up over the years, all disturbingly similar. The forest, they say, hides things that don't want to be found. And the staircases may not have been built to be climbed. Perhaps they were built to observe who dares to get close. Over time, the reports stopped focusing only on the existence of the staircases. The stories began to center on what happened when someone ignored the warnings. Because inevitably, there is always someone who climbs. Some describe an immediate feeling of discomfort upon touching the steps, a cold that didn't come from the environment, but from within their own body. Others speak of absolute silence, as if the forest itself had been switched off for a few moments. No wind, no insects, no birds, just the staircase, and the awareness of being somewhere they shouldn't be. There are accounts of people who climbed only a few steps before stopping, overwhelmed by a sudden fear they couldn't explain. Others claim they reached the top, only to realize there was nothing there. No door, no platform, just emptiness. And yet many describe the unmistakable feeling of being watched the entire time. In some cases, the problem didn't begin in the forest, but afterward. Those who returned reported subtle changes, memory gaps, recurring dreams of staircases appearing in impossible places, a strange difficulty remembering familiar paths they once knew well. As if something had been displaced, not physically, but internally. Search and rescue teams tell even more disturbing stories. During searches for missing people, staircases were found near the last known location of the individual, always intact, always silent. In several reports, the dogs refused to approach, whined, or pulled hard on their leashes, desperately trying to move away from that specific spot. None of these staircases showed recent signs of use, no footprints, no evidence of construction, and when teams attempted to return to the location days later, they were simply gone. The forest seemed to decide when to reveal and when to hide. What unsettles most in these accounts isn't the idea of an object out of place, but the repetition of a pattern. The staircases appear when someone is vulnerable, when someone is lost, when someone is alone enough to make a decision without witnesses. Perhaps the staircases are not an invitation. Perhaps they are a test. And the question that begins to form isn't what exists at the top, but what happens to those who choose to climb. As the years passed, the staircases stopped being treated as just a strange phenomenon and began to occupy an uncomfortable space between modern folklore and something no one wanted to investigate too deeply. Not because reports were lacking, but because they all pointed to the same unspoken conclusion. There was nothing to gain by getting too close. Experienced forest rangers began to avoid talking about it, not out of fear of being dismissed, But because they knew certain stories gain power when they are repeated, some admitted in private conversations that the forest seemed to react differently around the staircases. Trails became confusing. The sense of distance appeared to fail. Familiar places started to feel strangely displaced. In rarer accounts, people claimed to have seen someone standing at the top of the staircase. Not a clear figure, but a presence, a shape impossible to describe precisely. When they blinked or looked away for just a moment, there was nothing there anymore. Not the figure, sometimes not even the staircase. What's most unsettling is that there has never been a definitive pattern. The staircases don't appear the same way every time. Some are old, others far too new. Some are clean, others covered in moss, as if they didn't belong to the same time or the same place, and perhaps that's the point. The forest is not just a physical space, it's an environment where references disappear, where directions blur, where silence is not the absence of sound, but the absence of answers. The staircases seem to exist precisely at that boundary, between what is recognizable and what should not be there. No official records explain where they come from. No investigation has proven that they lead anywhere. And yet they continue to appear, always isolated, always out of context, always offering a silent choice: climb or ignore. Perhaps the staircases are not traps. Perhaps they are not portals. Perhaps they are simply a cruel reminder that not everything in the forest was meant to be understood. Because some paths don't lead forward. They only show how far you're willing to go. And when something appears in the middle of the forest with no reason, no origin, and no destination, perhaps the real question was never where it leads, but why you felt the urge to climb.